So my name is Atul Khanzode. I'm with DPR Construction. Greg and I've been talking with Greg and Damon, and wanted to share some of what sort of we are doing. So go through this. So the agenda, sort of go through our lessons learned, some of the strategy in terms of where we see the application of construction technologies taking us, and then really want to have a dialogue in terms of our focus areas and innovations. Great opportunity to interact with people here. So do let me know. Just a little bit of a background. This is the only slide that I have. So I lead our construction technologies group here at DPR. We are a general contractor that's based out of California. Have offices around 20 other cities in the country. We also do some international work. Some of the statistics here, the one that we are proud of is the one on the right, which is this. This year or last year we ranked 10th on the best companies to work for by Fortune. So that is a great. So I really wanted to sort of jump into our lessons learned and then draw out how we are utilizing that to focus on some of our strategy, and we'll go through that. My presentation is really short, so ask me questions, interrupt me, and as I go through this. So. Like I mentioned, we are a technical builder, so we do work in basically four sort of what we call our core markets. So biopharmaceuticals, that could be drug manufacturing plants or biotech labs, healthcare hospitals, which are pretty complex here in California, or medical office buildings. We also build a lot of data centers. We're doing a lot of work for Facebook. We built their data center in North Carolina, in Sweden, in other places. Also corporate offices, so a lot of projects I can talk about. So this is an example of one of those larger projects. This is our Mission Bay Hospital project. As you're going to the ballpark in San Francisco, this on the 4th Street there, you'll see this building. It's almost completed. And what we are sort of doing on these projects is utilizing what I would call sort of a multidisciplinary and cross-functional team in a big room type setting, people working together, doing an extreme amount of BIM on those. So this project, for example, we have done a lot of modeling with those guys, about 120 people working together to essentially basically virtually build this facility, and we are seeing the benefit because of that. So this is just an example of our change orders. Normally on California projects, you'll see changes in millions and lawsuits and all that. This project has been actually going pretty well. We have been able to absorb a lot of change orders, just changes because of the way we have operated that in a sort of a big room setting with a lot of people working together. And then in terms of how I think what we see happening is the latency in asking and answering questions is reduced quite a bit. So on an average, I mean, this might for people who work in tech, it's probably not a big deal, but for construction, getting a request for information turned around in 4 days is a big deal. And on an average, that's what's happening on this job. For example, we are also answering a lot of submittals first time, so everybody's working together. They know what's going on, things like that. And then one of the metrics that we track as a company is what is called as plan production complete or plan percent complete. So this is essentially a team making commitments on what they're going to do, much like an agile or lean process. So 1 week out, people make commitments, and then we come back at the end of that week and sort of track how much you did. On an average, construction projects are about 60%. On this project, we are seeing about 80% plus sort of commitment reliability, which is a great thing for us. I mean, just from a performance perspective of a team. So we see on these projects, what we are seeing right now is a lot of benefits just in the way the work gets done in the field. So this is an example where we have, reduction in waste factor or reduction in waste, accurate, performance in the field. So there's about, 2,500 anchor boards, for example, on this project. And if you have ever worked in the field and installed anchor bolts, you'll know the, what you sort of run into. So this has been, doing that through BIM, through sort of the, total stations and things like that. So directly laying it out from the model. Um, we have we also do our own drywall work, and part of the I'm not going to read all the benefits, but this is something that we are doing across the board, where we are modeling based on a designer's model, taking it down to sort of an individual stud. And then the other benefit that we are also seeing with this is usually whenever you see all these openings in the walls, normally the way that work gets done in major commercial projects is everybody is going to do their own layout, their own basically openings, things like that. On this project, we've been able to combine that. So a lot of benefits are because of the BIM is due to the labor that we are saving in the field. And that far outweighs whatever money you can spend on doing this upfront and integrating that. So that's something we are seeing. Again, directly laying out things from the model. So this is about 300,000 inserts. So inserts are all the support systems for your mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, and again fairly accurate. All of that, and this is all being done based on a permitted model. The agency that permits hospitals in California is a pretty strict agency. All of this, we modeled that and laid it out, using the total station. So based on this, I mean, so you might say, yeah. So what's great about this? I mean, we want to, progress beyond sort of what this is, what you saw here. But what we are seeing is that just doing even this is adding the benefits to our projects in an integrated team and using BIM. We sort of, are aligning our strategy in terms of integration of what I call this POP, which is a product organization and process. And you heard a couple presentations here today. One was Peter Rumsey. I think Melissa just talked about this also today. And in terms of, I think, what everybody wants, what our owners want is, if you start on on your left, everybody wants a high performance building. And we think that currently there is a lack of sort of definition of what a high performance building is. So we are trying to describe what a high performance building is in terms of not just whether it's sustainable or is energy efficient, but also whether it's buildable, whether it's operable, whether it's usable by the people that are going to occupy it, and also whether it's sustainable. So that's how we are sort of defining a high performance building. And if you look at those 4 criteria, then the first thing that sort of comes to mind is that you're not going to get a high performance building unless you integrate the systems properly. So all the systems need to work together. And we see a bunch of examples where, on projects that is not done properly, and then you suffer because of that through the life cycle of the facility. So that's something that we want to focus on. And then, if you want to get a building that is high performing with a system that work together, we don't know how you can get there without the processes that are integrated. So one of the things that we talk about quite a bit is lean, integrating this upfront, and then you cannot do that unless you have the right people working together. So the integrated organizations, which is sort of talks about the product, process, and organization. And a part of this is based on the information in BIM that's now available, which you can utilize to simulate performance. We are notorious as an industry to, our buildings, we cannot really predict performance right now. So even if you ask somebody, what the building performance is going to be, nobody's going to sign off on that. We are happy to basically give a 1-year warranty on the basic building performance. But beyond that, I think if you compare our industry to any other industry, we are quite separate. And then we see that the other thing that our industry could benefit from is real performance and outcome metrics. So, you can look at a car dashboard and really know what's happening. I think if you walk into a building, commercial building, very rarely do you see how the building is performing. So we see that I think is something you can simulate, visualize, and tie to metrics. And then there are other things, a lot of what we talk about is also production management and then collaboration or co-location. So this is really sort of the strategy that we are, basing our, sort of future development in some sense, or future focus on innovation in some sense. So that's something we are doing. The other thing that we have sort of gone through is, and this probably applies to sort of information in BIM, is currently the way I sort of see it is I think we have gotten really good at integrating. So you look at integration of teams, you look at integration of systems, you look at interoperability, and that's something that I see us doing. I mean, reasonably, with a reasonable competence, I would say. I think a lot of people also struggle with the integration, in systems and various tools that you guys are all sort of familiar with. But where I see this also evolving into is automation. I mean, currently the integration is, sort of allowing us to, provide a reliable performance in some sense. But we are not able to make the breakthrough performance unless we really, go to something like automation. And Melissa talked about sort of, this digital fabrication initiative. We want to do a lot of that. There's a lot of, offline I can talk to anybody that's passionate about it. A lot of impediments that we see in terms of the way teams are organized, the way design comes together, working with unions, a whole lot of issues that I think need to be sort of addressed. So, but this is the sort of evolution of what we see. So currently our focus is in the integration automation bucket. I think visualization, we see that we have addressed it, although there's more we could do in terms of sort of immersive visualization and other things. So where are we spending our time in terms of innovations? And I think these are the areas, if anybody here is passionate about, we would love to partner. We, don't have all the answers and don't have all the resources, and we pretty much, enjoy working with people. So, if anybody is passionate about any one of these areas, I would love to, talk to you guys. So the first thing is really, again, and the way I sort of organize this is what are the focus areas in terms of organizational innovation process, and then sort of this product innovation. So this first slide here is one of the things that we are doing is really getting the game sort of raised within our organization in terms of building everybody's skills to be able to act in this sort of new world. So, I mean, just like any other organization, we have a lot of people who have a lot of experience, but are not really, used to, working in the BIM environment or the big rooms and other things. So part of what you see here is really understanding, based on your role, what functions you need to do so that you can be successful in your role. So these are mostly related to sort of being able to model, ability to work with, design teams, facilitation skills, things like that. So very focused on sort of organization and raising the bar. So one of the goals, for example, that we have set is, we want, essentially all the company in an operational role to be able to play in this sort of new world by the end of this year. And currently, our numbers are, although we are doing great stuff on projects, it's being done by a minority of, or 200 people out of the, larger sort of group. So that's something we want. I think the other thing, again, from an organization point of view, is connecting with the workers. So this is actually a picture of a couple of our foremen, utilizing the iPad as well as the paper that gets generated from the model out in the field to really, visualize, how and what they're going to build. We see this, mobile platform mobility as being a big deal for our staff. One of the things that we are doing right now is, providing these iPads or mobile devices to all our foremen so that they can do things like that on any of their projects. And then providing, this whole gap of, between pre-construction and operations, a lot of work happening in the big rooms and the trailers, but these guys really benefit from it. And I see a huge area of opportunity because the apps that we use, that we have used in the past, and what you can do with them is pretty limited even right now. And I think that's something, again, is something that we want to explore further, much more use of. I think there's some basic stuff we are doing in terms of navigation, taking dimensions, visualizing complex areas, things like that. But I think there's a lot more we could do with these devices that we are not doing right now. I did talk about visualization. So this is immersive visualization. We have a cave in our Redwood City office where we are taking fairly detailed and rendered models and inviting our clients to sort of immerse themselves in the environment and do this. So this is just an image of few of our clients looking at a fairly complex MEP system for one of our hospital projects. We see this. I wish to say that we would have had more use for this. I think there's a time and space in a project's life cycle where this is very useful, and we want to get sort of more involved and engaged in that sort of early phase where this is useful. But again, we are bringing our teams to actually visualize this. This is a little busy if you have never used it. People get a little busy while sort of utilizing that head-mounted display, but I'm assuming this technology will become a lot easier as it sort of develops further. And it has gotten a lot less expensive over the years that at least I've tracked it. And this kind of follows, the discussion that Melissa just went through in terms of the prefab. And I believe, the pictures on the right are from one of our subcontractors, ACO, right across the bay here. If you visited their shop, they connect their models to the CNC and manufacture the ducts and all that. A lot of this we want to do. I think like I mentioned, I think the technical challenges are there, like you talked about, Melissa, in terms of the connection of CAD/CAM and the CNC and all that. There's all that needs to be figured out. But I also see that there's a bunch of organizational challenges that we also need to solve in terms of involvement of builders in the design process. Working with the union so that they don't feel like this work is being taken away from them, things like that. And I think especially in like heavily unionized areas, this is a challenge. So we could do this, for example, pretty easily in Texas or North Carolina, but in California this becomes pretty challenging. So even bringing those guys together so you can do for example, a cross-trade prefab becomes an issue. So that's something we are trying to work with unions and others. And also just from a sort of a technical perspective, also take it further. What subs have done, wanting to do, for example, a panelized, wall application. It seems simple, should be able to do it. We do it many times, but sort of figuring out the viability for that as a business. Then mobile purpose-built apps. So we've built a bunch of apps ourselves. This is an example of something that we've done. The picture on the right is for our Lucille Packard Children's Hospital project, where we are combining the data in a sort of 4D animation, so owners can see, for example, as the sequence is progressing, what are some of the key statistics that they need to be aware of, number of trucks, number of workers, parking spaces needed, things like that. So this is an application that sort of allows us to keep track of sort of almost as a dashboard or an ongoing dashboard. So we've developed a few applications like these that we are utilizing internally. And I see this being an area that our younger project engineers really get excited about. There's a lot of stuff you can do these days that's not that expensive. So we are trying to figure out how much of that sort of we allow for the folks to do. Things like apps like GoForms and other stuff. People download and do stuff on their own. There's some really cool stuff that is going on in our company right now that we're trying to sort of channel that energy and build more of that. That would be useful. So, for example, one guy built this app that allows us to manage a delivery through sort of a QR code. So we know, for example, do a lot of work in San Francisco, and no lay down space. If you do especially go on Market or one of these, Chinatown or other places, really no lay down space. So we have them, go to their smartphone, log into this app, get their delivery window schedule, and unless somebody has that QR code on their smartphone while they deliver something, we are not going to allow them to sort of stop. So I think that's something has been really successful and really was built by somebody that was a PE on our job who got excited about the technology and wanted to do it. So we're trying to encourage a lot of that sort of innovation within our company. Lot more craze about the drones, although I'm yet to see sort of a real use for us right now. We have flown this. I mean, this is pretty cool to do it. We have done this on a few projects. I don't know what the FAA is going to say, but we've tried this out. We have been talking to a couple firms. I think they might be here, 3D Robotics and a few other people, trying to figure out whether this is useful from an example would be I think inspections or figuring out progress complete on a project. So for example, we have a pretty big site down in Cupertino where we're going to dig a bunch of stuff. Could we figure out, for example, what the cubic yardage of the dirt is that we are going to move or things like that. But right now we are trying this out. There's a few, 3 or 4 of these units that we have that we've flown around. Cool graphics, and again, if you have figured out a good use for this, would love to hear your experiences. We are also working with a few vendors to really take the use of building information modeling facilities. A lot of opportunity we see there. And again, currently this, with the silos that we have, the people who we deal with are mostly on the capital program side, and the facility side is pretty separated. But they can utilize a lot of this, for everything from, like the Lucid type displays for your building performance to, things like wayfinding. I mean, there's a lot of uses that we have. And we believe that, as a quarterback on the project where we are coordinating the models, we have the very detailed models of a facility, that the owners are going to want to sort of see that. So we are working with a few vendors, on the building control side, as well as sort of the technology vendors, visualization, to figure out and bring it together, in a sort of a managed service. We see this as more of a sort of a customer affinity type, avenue for us, where we build a facility for somebody, we stay engaged with them. So if there's any other stuff that happens, we'll continue to sort of stay engaged with them. And just a screenshot. This right one is using the Glue product from Horizontal or Autodesk, I guess, and trying to build this in a sort of an online platform that we could offer to our owners. We are also trying to figure out the RFID technology, and really mostly from from a safety and a material and equipment management perspective. So this is a sort of an architectural sort of picture for this cloud-based system that we had for essentially access control on our project, where we integrated this with worked with this company called ThinkMagic, which now I think is part of Trimble, and tried to really identify for our hospital project, linking it back to BIM so that we can predict any time from a safety perspective where workers are. This job site, at any one point has about, had about 1,500 workers, at the peak, varying anywhere from 800 to 1,500 at any one point. And part of the challenge that we face is really understanding, in an event like earthquake or any other safety event, where people are. So we work with vendors like Tekla and ThinkMagic to really understand, visualize, exactly where people are, what they're doing, so that we could reach to them and things like that. So this has been a pretty successful sort of system. We are now trying to sort of analyze this data and really understand the flow of work and a whole bunch of other things, from a production perspective. For example, one of the things that we're trying to understand is, based on the quantities in the model and the worker density, how much of something you can do, which nobody sort of really can tell you in a real-time basis. You can look at it from a schedule, resource perspective, but then you're utilizing this to really understand worker to supervisor ratios, quantities of various trades and systems to the worker ratios, congestion, things like that. So we're working with Sci-Fi at Stanford to sort of do some of this work. And then this is my last slide here. The focus areas sort of going into the next few years for us. I mentioned training and outreach, which is our sort of organizational focus, really getting our folks up to speed. One thing we believe is, I think a lot of the benefits that we want to get across the board also happen because of standardization. And if you look at how we have done sort of work even within our industry, I mean, one of the things we are looking at is integration across not just the various functions, but also functional groups within our company. So, estimating, operations, job cost accounting, scheduling, I mean, they tend to be separate and done separately. And now what this is allowing us to do is really standardize across that, the information is there. Metrics is something we track all the time. So this is just talking about what are the benefits we see in terms of application of either integration or BIM or some of these other tools. And then BIM for FM I talked about. Then connecting the sort of modeling to the field is a big deal. A lot of focus there. Design management. So we as general contractors are getting pulled earlier and earlier in the design process, and want to connect that to sort of all the way back to fabrication. So and a lot of our people are not trained for design management. So now we have invested in design professional, architects, engineers who now work for us that essentially are taking this on where we can manage design for a client in either a design build capacity, design assist capacity, or any other way. And then this last is sort of this integrated costing and production planning. So really connecting with the field, all the way from an estimating all the way to the end. So that's my last slide. And again, any of these focus areas, anybody has great ideas, would love to talk with you guys. That's my contact. Any questions?
I got a question. Yeah. What's the range of educational background of the employees that you hire?
That's a loaded question. So I mean, we have craft as well as professional employees, and so project engineers are usually they have a 4-year degree in either architecture, construction management, civil engineering, any other form of engineering. But then we have a lot of craft too. I mean, that sort of gone through the apprentice sort of education, through carpenters union or any other sort of union. And then there's others. I mean, a lot of people also have masters, and we also have a few PhDs now. So.
Are you embracing or seeing an adoption from those who are more traditional in the craft side and the hands-on, embracing levels of BIM and levels of fabrication and other technologies, in any noticeable difference from those with the professional backgrounds?
So what I'd say is, I think it depends. I mean, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, I would have said, we were struggling with it. But now, I mean, especially on sort of this, metal framing side or drywall side, I don't have to sell anything. I mean, the guys who are actually producing the models for us are the guys who have built drywall for like 20 years in the field. And they see it as actually a way to extend their careers by doing something that's less physically stressful. So, I mean, it's been really interesting. I mean, I now sit in presentations where they are talking about the benefits of BIM, where, 4 years ago, you could hardly get them to open a computer. So.
Great, thank you.
So, do you see the role of a BIM engineer and a project engineer merging or diverging?
So, I mean, so we sort of are consciously trying to raise the level of project engineers and project managers to a level where they have enough BIM skills to operate in sort of on our projects. We also think that I think there is still a role for some specialist BIM engineers, because there's always new things that are happening, new I mean, so, I mean, an example would be, I mean, I think we are more model consumers than model creators. Many of the project engineers, for example, but, there's still a need for model creators, and, there's a group of, people that sort of get migrated to that just want to stay in sort of that technical side. But then there's also people who want to sort of, be the project engineer, know those basic skills, and sort of do that. So I think I would, if it was up to me, I would say, yeah, everybody should have all the skills, but it's not sort of practical. So we are trying to combine the skill set, if you may, but still keeping the two roles sort of separate.
Getting from 4 years ago to where you are now, you were talking about standardization and training. What were some of the fundamental things you had to get out of the way to get where you are now? Was it getting them the right hardware? Of course, you had to get them the right training, but were there some key things? It was like, well, everybody, we didn't realize you have to have a 24-inch monitor that can handle this resolution, or we thought you didn't need an integrated graphics card, but really everybody needs to. Are there any fundamentals like that?
So I think I would say that the technology side was actually the easy part. Meaning, I mean, the examples that you gave, the monitors or the, do I have the right, computer or.
But convincing like a project manager or director, executive to spend is usually a tough thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's so. I think, but where the spend, I think what I would say is I think the spend really comes in investing in people. So for example, I mean, we used to struggle with getting a BIM engineer on a project. Not the computers and stuff, because I think computers are on a lease, and I mean, whatever the latest, I think that it operates, what we need. So that has not been as much of a challenge as the people side. So what are the benefits to me? And I think you really, I mean, what I've seen sort of being very useful is sort of really trying to connect to those guys in sort of, I mean, answering the sort of what's in it for me kind of question. And when we started, I mean, the example I gave about drywall, when we started with drywall, they didn't want to touch any of this, because they said, this can never work. We've been down this road before, and it would never work for me. We're spending a lot of money, and we say, let's just try it out on. I mean, you need to create so we have an internal mechanism, for example, where we want to try out new things. We take it away from a project manager's discretion. So we don't, we say, okay, we're going to try this out on your project, but you're not going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it through, a different budget. And really create a success story where then, somebody like me who gets paid to talk about, how great BIM is or whatever, it's not me doing that, but, you get a superintendent doing that, or get somebody that sort of, is their colleague doing that. And we did that, quite deliberately, I think probably 5-6 years ago, where, got those people involved and really supported them. I would say that, not everything that we did was successful, but, some of the stuff did. I think that some of the benefits that you saw on this travel thing has become really successful, and now I don't have to sell it. So now it becomes, sort of a self-perpetuating kind of a thing internally.
That's cool. And then you said that you lease all of your computer hardware for each job?
No, I mean, we lease it for everybody, and it's on a pretty fast lease cycle. So we are always, I mean, maybe I'm not on like the latest everything, but, that's never been an issue. I mean, if we need something, we've been able to swap it out. I mean,
Gotcha.
Any other questions? James?
You mentioned cost, job costing and productivity. I know you guys do some of your own self-performing work and you can capture that information, but what about subcontractors? You know how difficult it is to get productivity and job cost information out. Do you find other ways to sort of reverse engineer to get that information, or you track it, or do they give you the information?
I mean, that's an interesting question, because, I think it really depends on the type of contract on our projects. So if it's a lump sum contract, nobody's going to share that information with you. They want to keep the, delta. And, so that's something that's very sort of true on lump sum. On jobs where we have a guaranteed maximum price contract, which is where some of the owners are sort of pushing us in, then everything that you do on that job, is an auditable thing. So labor cost, material cost, deliveries, everything. So on those jobs, it's been, I mean, we have the data from the sub because we have to convince, show that to the owner to justify, billings and schedule of values, things like that. So those jobs we have the data, and we have done comparisons where we've sort of looked at and ranked projects where we've said, okay, did we do BIM? Did we integrate the team early? Did we apply lean practices? And ranking those projects and then looking at some of these outcomes. And what we see is sort of a really good correlation when we do a lot more BIM, when we do a lot more integration, when we do a lot more sort of lean practices, last plan or things like that. So some of that, but it's hard to get on every project. I mean, it's not sort of possible. Thank you.
You were saying you're providing iPads to all of your foremen?
Yeah.
And then, so what are you doing for job site connectivity? And then supporting that, who does your IT department report to? Is there a CIO, or does IT report to like a continuous improvement department, or how does that work?
No, so we have a counterpart of mine that heads up IT. I'm part of our construction technologies group. So she manages all sort of what I call the plumbing of our company. So, networks are on, or, my computer has the right patch or whatever. I mean, all of that is done by the IT group. And everything that touches our customer is done by my group. So that's how we sort of manage that.
Gotcha. And then job site connectivity, connecting all those iPads.
All of that is, it's all like getting network, what bandwidth I need, and do I need a whatever this pipe or I mean, all that. They manage the contracts and all that.
Okay.
Regarding the integration of BIM and facilities management, I guess, I'm curious, kind of what that process looks like for you guys, with customers. Oftentimes we find that as-builts are rarely updated, let alone the idea of a 3D model. So are you guys, I'm just curious how you manage that. Are you basically the ones that are managing and maintaining any as changes in the BIM model? How does that actually tie into the facilities management? I guess what's the role that it plays?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, so what we see is, so we are on a lot of these projects now, especially the larger projects, our installation in the field happens through BIM. So essentially, unless we have updated BIM, we cannot actually do the work in the field. So by default, the BIM that we turn over to the clients is updated. It is the as-built. Many times they still want the 2D documents, so we'll also turn those over to them. So where we see sort of the facility management is, I think there's sort of a clear, at least on the projects that we deal with, the capital guys, the people who are responsible for, essentially contracting with us to build the facility are very separate from the facilities group. And that's sort of the biggest challenge we face. So, and that essentially translates into, in the BIMs that we are turning over, is there the right data that the facilities wants? And is it in the right format? So what we are basically saying is, hey, we manage this process for you anyway. Getting everybody's models up to date, combined, clash-free, and fabricating off of that, laying out from that, and then we can turn those over to you. But does it have the right data? So it's really the curation of the models that we are seeing a lot of owners are now could benefit from. So, an example of the Mission Bay project. So we are working with their facilities group. They have an independent facilities group that has a lot of requirements. So they have to justify, for example, to the California Joint Commissions on hospitals what their spaces are, because they have to maintain certain percentages of patient space versus waiting areas versus pharmacies, things like that. So all of that now we have automated for them through BIM, by just coding the spaces. Their facilities group is interested in tracking, equipment information in their Maximo, which is an IBM system. So one of the things that we are doing is adding those attributes into the model, so that when we turn that over, that sort of format is in the Kobe format. They have that and they can fill it in or maintain their equipment, do the maintenance, and all of that, sort of generate their tickets, things like that. So it's really more on the, what I would say is on the sort of added services side that we are seeing value for ourselves. But what we also see is, some of the clients that we deal with don't really have the wherewithal to actually manage any of this information, in BIM especially. And we can do that for them. I mean, we are in it all the time. And so the thing that we're trying to do is sort of develop this as a, essentially another service, just like you do pre-construction or, green or, all of these. This just becomes something that we sort of stay in contact with our clients for.
And just a follow-up to that, is there any actual tie-in with the facilities management system or the building automation system?
So there are a few examples, that we have. So this, in our Phoenix and San Diego offices, which are sort of both net zero facilities, we have the lucid displays which show the, essentially what's happening anytime you walk in. You can see what the, generation of, solar energy is and how much of, water we have used, things like that. I think from a control point of view, there's not much that at least I have seen, integrated with BIM. We are just finishing up our office space in San Francisco on Front Street, and we are actually trying that with Honeywell right now. So there's a dynamic leak plaque, and then there's a whole bunch of other things that we are doing there where we're trying to figure out, just in a sort of a touchscreen display, if you want to go to XYZ conference room, having that intelligence where, you touch on something and it will actually show you the least, whatever least distance path to get there, or give you more information about something, things like that. So there's, stuff we can do that we are just exploring the, scratching the surface, I would say.
You had mentioned that you're putting a focus on kind of training and outreach. Are you seeing any educational institutions that are putting out students with the right skill sets that are here, or are you having to kind of give everybody that education when they get to your campus?
No, so we do. I guess the training. We see the sort of apprenticeship sort of training for BIM as a lot better than. So I think a lot of folks are coming into. Our company with some basic skills on these tools anyway these days, and the universities we recruit in. And so, but what they don't have is really the. I think a lot of what I see is a lot of younger people really good at the tools, but really lacking the knowledge on construction. And it's actually a little bit dangerous if you have that versus the other situation where you actually know construction and then teaching the tool set is actually easier. So what we do is we sort of pair a younger guy with let's say a superintendent, and he really walks them through, okay, I want this from the model, this is how you need to, break your force, and this is what, I want my construction joints to be, things like that, and that really teaches them how to do it, and so that's what we do.
And are there any existing educational institutions that you see are producing students or good programs that are coming out? Or
so my alma mater, Stanford. We have Cal Poly, Chico. There's a lot of institutions in California. We work with Penn State, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. University of Texas, Texas A&M. All these institutions have BIM classes. Arizona State, University of Arizona, USC. I can rattle off. You can go to our website. You can see where we recruit.
Can you clarify for me when you use the term BIM, that can be a lot of different things?
Yeah.
Are you using a single database? Are you using international standards, or is it a proprietary data model that you're utilizing?
So I think from an interoperability point of view, we have used IFCs quite a bit. Where it gets challenging is that IFCs don't have definitions, good definitions on MEP systems yet. So that's
on what?
On mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, and that's a lot of what we do. So those are proprietary data formats depending on sort of what the subs use. So I think they're mostly built on the DWG spec, basically. That I see. I guess from that perspective, probably use the term BIM a little loosely, but yeah, I think that's sort of what we're dealing with.
So you're able to use all tools into a single information model, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a sort of a visualization and sort of resolution of conflicts perspective, yes. But for production, we are not able to right now. So then you go back to those other tools sets that we use to create the models.
In regards to the legal aspect of all this that's going on, do you find yourself using more private kinds of attorneys or law teams, or do you go more for other companies?
So clarify your question.
In regards to the legal aspect of all of this, do you
All of what?
of the projects that you do, like, because I saw that in the slide that you had legislation part of the team that like needed to be built, and the whole of what's working on what you're doing. Like, is there like your own like team of attorneys that you guys use, or do you go out?
No, I mean, I think many times the clients we work with already have legal teams that we have to work with.
Okay.
Yeah, the form of contracts can vary a lot. I mean, I think some people mentioned, Peter was talking about sort of this integrated form of agreement or integrated project delivery type contract, which is a different type that's being promoted by the AIA these days in terms of, 2 or 3 companies signing on the same contract. Normally, it's a construction manager at risk contract that we sign, which is most of our work. But I think even sort of beyond that, I think, irrespective of the contract, we still want to get on and integrate with the designer as early as possible. So that's what we see benefit in, without the contract. So, okay. Thank you, everybody.